Okay, to make our super chunky beanie, we're just going to need some super bulky yarn. This is the Bernard Softy Chunky, and it's just in, what is this, gray heather. And I'm going to be using an 8mm hook. It's also called an L hook, and this is a clover one. Links to everything will be in the pattern, so you can just click on to see it, or they'll be in the description below. Okay, so for this beanie, let's start by making our slip knot. Insert your hook into the knot and pull it to tighten it. Now I'm going to start with chain 18 for this beanie. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Okay, now we're going to work half double crochet into each space, starting with the second chain on the hook. So skip this first one, yarn over, and work into the second space, right here. Just half double crochet, and now just half double crochet in each space along. At the end, you should have 17 half double crochet because you skipped that first chain. But it's pretty straightforward. Just continue working your half double crochets. Make sure to loosen the yarn as you go so it's never too tight. Oops. And now we're at the last one, right here. Work your last half double crochet, and now normally at the end of the row you would chain one before you turn. Here's the finished row. Normally you would chain one and then turn, but for this we're not going to do that. We're just going to turn and then begin working into the next row. So here's your first row. We're going to start the next row. Okay, so at the end of your last half double crochet, turn, and then work slip stitches into each space along. So start with the first one, insert your hook, pull over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and now that you have 2 loops on your hook, you're going to pull the first one through the other one, just like that. Now just continue that the whole way through, slip stitching into each space. And here is the last one. Okay, and now you chain one. This is what it looks like. So after you chain one, you can turn the work around to start working row 3. Now, when you look at row 3 like this, you're going to see this in the front, but the stitches that you're going to be working are actually the slip stitches from the row before, and they're going to actually be behind the work. And you're only going to be working into the back loop of each stitch. So as you can see, there's a V shape for each stitch. This is the front loop, and then this one here is the back loop. So we're only going to be working into the back loop for this row. So yarn over, insert your hook through the back loop only, pull up, and now half double crochet as you normally would. Continue this along the rest of the line, and I'll meet you back at the end. Feel free to change the way you hold the piece. When I'm working into the back loops only, I actually like to hold a piece vertically like this, facing me, rather than horizontally like I normally do. It just seems easier to get into that back loop stitch. But any way you hold your work is fine. Okay, now here is the last one. Work into the back loop, half double crochet. Okay. Now you can see that this part creates sort of a raised ridge. That's what happens from working into the back loop. And that's what's going to help create our ribbed texture at the end. So at the end of the row, do not chain one, just turn your work without chaining, and then repeat row 2, just slip stitch into each space. Okay, so after you repeated the rows for a while, you'll have something that looks like this. See how that creates like a ribbed texture where every other row is raised while the other is pushed back a little bit. This texture is also super stretchy, and it's really easy to create just repeating those 2 rows. So this is after I've worked 41 rows. That sounds like a lot, but really you're just repeating the same 2 rows, and with super bulky yarn like this, it works up really quickly. So at the end, I'm stopping on a half double crochet row. So when I finish the row, I reach the end, I'm just gonna bind off. So yarn over and just pull the working yarn through. Pull it all the way through. We're gonna need this much length to help sew the piece together at the end. Okay. Now, just pull that to tighten it. It's not gonna come undone, so just leave it like that now. And you're gonna notice that as you work, your piece isn't exactly straight. It's sort of slanted to one side. Let me show you an end. It sort of slants over to one side. That's not going to matter once you actually start sewing it, because then it's just going to be a continuous loop, and after the first wash it'll fix itself anyways. So to start with, now we're just going to fold the piece in half like this, and we're going to seam this edge together, these two short ends together, so that you have sort of a square, like this. Just go ahead and sew these ends together the way we learned how, going in between the stitches for an invisible seam. Okay, so once you've sewn up this side, this is where the stitch was. Now you've sewn that side up, you can work on this side to bring the top of the beanie to a close. Because it's the same color, you can see that it's a pretty seamless seam. Like, you can't really tell you sewed anything there, it just continues on in the pattern. So we're going to turn the work to the side. I didn't cut it or anything, this is where it is. Just turn the work to the side and go around and just like pick up this top stitch with your needle. You see this loop, just go around, and for each place just pick up, oops, just pick up one loop. Doesn't have to be perfect or any specific loops, just pick them up so that you can grab all of them at the end and then bring them together. Do a couple at a time and then pull the yarn through so that you have room to work with more. Just keep going.
Circle around.
Don't split any of the stitches, so don't go through any of the like yarn loops, just go underneath them to pick them up. Okay, we're almost around. And I think we have two more left here. One, and let's do this one right here. Two. Okay, so now you just want to hold your work in place and then pull, and you'll see that it comes together. So pull it all together to close the top of that loop. There you go. So here it is. See, there's still a hole here. Just keep pulling it until it's, mostly closed. It'll still be a little bit open because bulky yarn is just like that. I'll leave a little section open like this. But now that it's mostly pulled, okay. Now you can just seal up the top by going in and out through random places, really. Just go under here. You can pull that later. You Go underneath here. And yeah, you're almost done. Just let's do one more. Oops. Try not to get the actual yarn. This is the loop. Okay. And now it's mostly closed. So now you can just go back in if you want, go back through the hole, and bring your needle into the inside, and then make a knot on the inside at the end over here. Make a knot on the inside here to close it up. Okay, once you're done with the beanie and you've pulled the top of it closed and sealed it off, this is what it looks like. The top might be a little bit puckered, like right here, like you got this big bump and then a curve here, but once it's actually on your head, that's all evened out anyways. It just looks like that one's off. Plus you're going to put a pom-pom right here, so it's going to look really nice at the end. One thing to keep in mind though is when you're pulling the top of it closed, when you're pulling that yarn through, be sure that you're not pulling it so much that the side seam gets pinched. It's all the same yarn, so it's all connected. So in pulling this, don't pull this. You can stretch it out a little bit back up if this does get pulled. Just pull it out and stretch it a little bit. But be sure to just seal it off and it'll be fine. So here's the finished beanie. I still have this last tail end to weave in. But for now, let's just move on to the pom-pom. This is a pom-pom from Michaels. It's a ready-made one, and it's one of those faux fur kinds. You can use one of these, or you can make your own pom-pom using the same yarn or different contrasting color yarn or whatever you like. But I'm going to be using this. Basically, all you're going to do is put your needle and some yarn through this to start with, and then sew it on right here onto the top. And then as you're sewing, be sure to go use a thinner yarn than the yarn you use for this, because it's going to be really hard to sew this on. But go through the top of the beanie and then go back up, go through the center of the pom-pom, not through the little loop that holds it there, that's just to anchor in the beginning, but go through the actual center, the puff, as you're going to feel that it's dense inside. Go through there and go back down into the beanie and then back up. Do that a couple times until your pom-pom doesn't wobble anymore, and then you're done. Then you finished your first beanie.